This video is brought to you by Surfshark, who for years have delivered humanized privacy and security solutions to safeguard your data and privacy online. Virtually travel the world, browse privately by encrypting your internet activity, block ads and malware that get on your way, and much more thanks to their easy-to-use tools. Plus, get an extra 4 months when you sign up using offer code SKILLUP at checkout. More details after the video.
High on Life 2. Alright, so this is the sequel to High on Life, the comedy sci-fi shooter from Squanch Games. This is a pretty known quantity in that regard. If you enjoyed the first game, good news, the sequel is more of that, and then some. It continues where the first game left off and leans into the same Rick and Morty style improv comedy that the studio is known for, which honestly for me is just as funny as ever. In fact, I can't recall the last time I've laughed this much while playing a video game. I go further and say that while it's been a long time since I played the first game, I actually think the writing overall feels more balanced here, since each of your rambunctious gun companions get more of a shared role here, making for a surprising sense of companionship between the rolling punchlines. Where things are an inarguable step up though is in the gameplay. High on Life 2 goes full movement shooter with the addition of an actual skateboard, allowing you to blitz around environments and combat arenas in exceedingly stylish fashion. It's also given Squanch Games the freedom to get a little more creative with level design, and on top of that, they've also injected a lot more enemy variety, the lack of which was one of the main criticisms of the first game. So by all accounts, it sounds pretty great. So why is this thing sitting at mixed reviews over on Steam? Well, while this may be one of the most entertaining first-person shooter campaigns I've played in a hot minute, unfortunately, it was also one of the buggiest and also one of the most poorly optimized. Now, I'm pretty lenient when it comes to technical issues. Some would say too lenient, but even for me, High on Life 2 crosses the line. While performance issues weren't a huge deal for me after some tinkering, that is clearly not the case for the average player, and is far worse on consoles if reports are to be believed. But believe it or not, this game's got worse problems than just poor optimization. I counted half a dozen hard crashes and just as many progression blocking bugs, with one so egregious that it actually completely soft locked me, and the only way to fix it was to follow a 12-step instruction guide from some random Steam user. Believe me, we'll get to that. So when it's working properly, High on Life 2 is a slam dunk of a sequel and a good time whether or not you've played the prior game, but the experience is regularly compromised by its woeful technical state, and sadly continues an industry trend of negligence that's become increasingly frustrating as of late.
Let's do it!
Great idea, lads. Of course we can order family style.
Is stabbing getting boring? A win-win if you love to puke like me.
Sort of got a halo thing going on here.
High on Life 2 picks up where the last game left off. You're a renowned intergalactic bounty hunter and hero of humanity after putting an end to an alien drug cartel that was turning humans into space drugs. So now everyone's living the good life, Creature has become a family man, and Les Do It is in bed with your mum. Don't ask. All while you continue to do what you do best, hunting down bad guys. That is until one mission sees you discover that humans are again being turned into a drug, but this time by Big Pharma, who intend to legalize its production and distribution for the masses. So it's game on for round 2. It's time to hunt down each of the members involved in this scheme and save the human race again. Now the story is great, to be honest. It's filled with all manner of entertaining tangents and twists that make an otherwise predictable structure anything but. Take for example this bounty. We're hunting down the pharmaceutical company's key benefactor. He's about to depart on a cruise ship, and so getting on board required us to befriend a soon-to-be passenger who's come alone after falling out with his wife. After some drunken shenanigans and D&Ms, we board the ship together, search up and down for our confiscated guns. Along the way, nabbing him a prized fedora using a giant circumcision laser. No, I will not elaborate. All before getting involved in some Knives Out style murder mystery game run by the target himself. And that's not even the half of what goes on in that whole mission. So yeah, each mission is basically like this. You never really know where it's gonna go, especially since the setting of each mission is so wildly different as opposed to the first game where it was more or less just the typical sci-fi environments you've seen in many other games. Much of my enjoyment is also obviously owed to the humor. Of course, humor is subjective, and if you're not into that Rick and Morty style improv comedy, then this is not the game for you. But even as someone who kind of grew out of that show a long time ago, I can honestly say that no other game in recent memory has made me laugh this much. I like to diss mixed batch, don't get me wrong, but I found the comedy most of the time was a little over-reliant on the swearing and sex jokes, whereas I find the jokes here, by comparison, are a little more creative. I particularly love all these self-aware jabs and fourth wall breaks, especially from Suto, who sounds like he's barely keeping it together most of the time. Like, I don't know what it is about actors breaking character, but it always gets me.
Maybe there's a fishing minigame, maybe there isn't. It doesn't matter. I just think there's an aquarium here and we should fill it somehow. All right.
It's not even just the dialogue itself that gets me. It's also just the ridiculous scenarios poking fun at the plights of the everyman, whether it be taking down a tech bro wizard trying to grift his subjects through a pump and dump crypto scheme.
Right. Keep this up, and you could be a very valuable part of my financial empire.
Or emphasizing the futility of finding parking at a convention by having you struggle to clear and hold a parking spot at a literal parking convention.
Amazing work, kid. The spot's clear. I'm swooping in real quick before anyone can get you. This is bullshit! This is complete utter bullshit! Life is an endless string of pain!
It's not just the stuff that's front and center either. I just as often find myself laughing at some signage, or some ramblings from an ambient NPC, or just some dumb show playing on a TV, like this news show that was spouting completely made up news, waiting for their audience to correct them.
It turns out the Galactic Emperor has not been killed, thank goodness. I'm sorry we said that.
Sorry. My apologies.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Interestingly, I don't actually think High on Life 2 loses much from Rick and Morty's co-creator Justin Roiland no longer being involved with Squanch Games. In fact, I actually found it made the game a little more palatable, since having that Morty voice in your ear for 10 plus hours can get quite grating. His absence also gives the other voice actors more of a spotlight, since the game no longer needs to capitalize on that recognizable voice. You immediately notice that in the dialogue decisions, for example, which here are done through each of the Gatlians aligned with their personalities. The absolute goat Knifey, for example, is more than willing to humor your murderous side.
I'd say the killing, probably, yeah.
Oh my, well, leave it to bloodthirsty old Knifey, the talking knife, to say something like that.
Yeah, I'm always saying adorable stuff, yeah. Hey, come here, get closer, let me stab ya.
While this handsome newcomer, the suave semi-automatic named Sheath, voiced by the one and only Ralph Ineson, he likes to take a more delicate approach.
Look at the size of that cruise ship. What a garish monument to excess.
Because of all this, I feel like you get to properly bond with this crew in a way that you couldn't in the first game, making this silly, goofy story feel just that bit more meaningful. But yeah, largely the story is carried by the comedy, and I'd expect nothing less. To be clear, it didn't have me fighting for my life with tears down my face or anything, but it's frequent and clever enough to get a chuckle a minute, making it impossible not to have a dumb smile on my face the entire time. We don't get many games with decent comedy in them, but I think Squanch Games are one of the few studios able to deliver on that front, and at least for me, actually leading the charge. The humor from the first game is very much intact. Let's talk about the gameplay. The first High on Life was rather average on that front, but the fundamentals were decent enough. Shooting felt good, and each Gatlian felt distinct with little quirks to help with puzzles and combat. Same can be said of the sequel. Guns have a satisfying kick to them, with upgrades available that can make them even more effective, and the new weapons here are just as versatile. Sheath, for example, can fire a spear to create zip lines, reroute electricity, and turn groups of enemies into an explosive shish kebab.
What are you doing now?
Ultimately though, High on Life 2 just feels so much more fun to play owing to one genius addition: the skateboard. Where the original High on Life was kind of Halo coded, the skateboard makes High on Life 2 play like Titanfall, embracing the speed and freedom of the movement shooter. Hitting what's typically the sprint button instead sends you barreling in that direction, controlled somewhat independent of your aim, but not completely. When it comes to movement, the skateboard allows you to gain air off ramps, ride along walls, and grind on railings, all while continuously blasting your enemies. Almost gives it a bit of a Sunset Overdrive energy. Remember that game? Good times. So obviously you can use all of that in combat, but it also has more direct combat utility in that you can shove it directly into the enemy's face for a quick melee, or even send it careening into them from afar. I really can't understate just how fun this skateboard feels to use when combined with the already solid shooter mechanics. I love it so much. If the grapple hook was that big thing added to all shooters in the last decade, let the skateboard be the next, I say. I mean, just imagine Doomslayer on a skateboard. I rest my case. It isn't just a simple movement gimmick either. The game's levels have been built around this thing, so you get some cool platforming segments, some exciting set-piece moments that make full use of it, and combat arenas with a bit more verticality to them, as opposed to the samey shooting gallery layouts of the prior game. Then, unrelated to the skating is the improved enemy variety. Every area has its own distinct set of enemies, and while they're not going to radically change the way you play, they do give each area more of its own flavor. I will note though that this is still a pretty easygoing shooter. Don't expect a game that's going to have you thinking super strategically or chaining rail grinds and wall runs while simultaneously using your gun's trick hole abilities to open vents or create platforms last second. There's definitely a bit of that, but it's never too demanding. The normal difficulty is just where it needs to be, I think. Just some chaotic, low stakes action that's engaging enough for someone like me who's experienced with shooters, but not being so demanding that you can't focus on the fun character banter. In that way, I also think it's one of the rare shooters that you could give to people who maybe aren't as experienced with this genre, or even video games in general, especially given there's a myriad of accessibility options to make aiming and shooting even easier. All told, this humor and combat makes for a great time. You can tell the devs had a lot of fun making this in the gags, the scenarios, and in the combat that now feels just as sharp and playful as the writing. And for that reason, I'd gladly recommend it to anyone who played the first game, and even those who haven't. Or at least, I wish I could, if it weren't for its dog water technical state. Unreal Engine and technical issues name a more iconic duo. Let's start with performance. Now, I certainly heard the feedback on my Borderlands 4 review where I recommended the game despite the performance issues because on a high-end rig, they didn't personally impact my playthrough that much. But I get that that doesn't really represent the experience of the average player, and I do want to be more cognizant of that moving forward. So with that in mind, High on Life 2's performance, it's bad. Booting up the game for the first time on my PC with an RTX 4080 Super at 2K resolution, this game was immediately stuttering and screen tearing like crazy, and that was with the default resolution scaling set to 75%, as if to hide the game's poor optimization. It became immediately clear that the only way I would be able to play this thing at max settings at a steady 60 plus FPS was to use AI upscaling, so I set DLSS to balanced. After all that, performance was thankfully stable and I wasn't too bothered by it. But again, I'm playing on a pretty high-end rig, and I suspect that even those on mid-tier machines will most certainly have to compromise on graphics settings or go more aggressive on the upscaling, which sucks. And look, contrary to popular sentiment around Unreal Engine, I'm adamant that it doesn't have to be this way. Look at Arc Raiders, look at Space Marine 2. You can get games running well on Unreal, it just takes work. It requires not relying on the engine's built-in tools and AI upscaling as a crutch, but too many developers are so focused on visual fidelity and timelines that they're all too happy to cut corners. And that especially stings right now given the hardware shortage going on, making upgrading your PC to alleviate these problems more expensive than ever. Much more alarming though, and something that did impact my experience, were the crashes and bugs. I counted precisely 6 hard crashes in just 12-ish hours of playtime, so yeah, that's an average of 1 hard crash every other hour. I also ran into just as many progression blocking bugs, including enemies stuck behind walls, or this boss fight where my shots were actually regenerating the boss's health. Thankfully, I didn't lose too much from these things since I could just reload from the last checkpoint, which was never too far away since the game's auto-saving like every 5 seconds. One byproduct of that constant auto-saving though, is that some of these bugs can completely soft lock your progress if they save at the wrong moment. For example, there was this instance where I needed to find and slot in a few books to open up a secret area. When looking around for the last book, I spotted a window I could jump through to skip the puzzle, so I thought, why not? And in fact, this seems to have been accounted for by the developers, as Sudo then makes this cheeky comment.
Oh, well, you just skipped one of the objectives. You kind of just skipped ahead a little bit. That's okay. I guess nothing really broke, right? Hopefully the game's still working. Let's just keep playing and cross our fingers.
So I thought that was pretty funny at first, until it turned out that my game did actually break. The game just refused to load me into the next area that I should have had access to. Reloading from checkpoint didn't do anything since it auto-saved when I entered the room, and only after some scouring did I find someone with a solution, which involved me installing an Unreal Engine save editor and manually tweaking some lines in Notepad to correct the game state, which finally let me continue. What's worse, this isn't the only place it can happen. If you look at Steam reviews, you'll see that people are having the same problem in other parts of the game with no way to fix it other than starting a new game. Now, thankfully, Squanch Games have recently rolled out a patch that supposedly fixes 14 of these progression blockers, including the one that I just talked about, but I can't confirm if that covers all of them. Whatever the case, the fact that this was such a common issue at launch is just unacceptable, and I imagine there's still much work to be done to iron out the rest of the bugs and get performance to where it needs to be. It's a bummer, man. Like, as I have made clear throughout this review, I really enjoyed High on Life 2. It was consistently hilarious and just plain fun to play, and there is definitely merit in that, but having your game work properly is the bare minimum, and tragically, High on Life 2 falls too short of that bar that, at least right now, I cannot recommend it to you.
Watch, shop, and browse where you want to with a selection of online tools that let you take charge of your internet freedom with this video sponsor, Surfshark. It's always the worst when you want to start a show that you've been meaning to watch, only to see that it's geo-blocked to a country you're not in. Surfshark lets you sidestep many of these restrictions with a click of a button, virtually teleporting you all over the world so you can watch or play whatever you please. Online shopping can work the same way. It's summer here in Australia, a great time to travel and relax, so finding a good deal on a hotel or a flight can help keep your mind at ease while you make plans. Surfshark lets you quickly and easily shop from a variety of different locations, so you can be sure you're getting a good deal and you can enjoy your vacation to the fullest. In addition to letting you browse the web freely, Surfshark helps you keep your data safer through their vast suite of data protection features. One of their newest is an email scam checker, where Surfshark will scan your emails and warn you if any are at risk of phishing or contain hazardous links. Sometimes it's really hard to tell whether an email is coming from a source that genuinely needs your information or just wants to steal it for malicious purposes. With Surfshark as your first line of defense, you are much safer from these sorts of malicious attacks and scams. It's super convenient since Surfshark can be used on a range of devices from PCs to phones to tablets and more, and their intuitive user interface makes it super easy to use. Sometimes it's as little as one click and you're away. I love it. I would never not have it installed on all my devices. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can visit surfshark.com/skillup. And if you use offer code SKILLUP at checkout, you'll get an extra 4 months. A great deal for a great product at surfshark.com/skillup. Offer code SKILLUP at checkout for 4 extra months. Thanks Surfshark for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.